Welcome to Marking the End Times. I'm Mark Hitchcock, and it's great to have you with us. As always, thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. And I want to encourage you, to be a subscriber at endtimes.com, but also become a subscriber to my YouTube channel that you can watch this video on as well. If you're not a subscriber, if you want to become a subscriber to the YouTube channel, that'd be a great help to us. So we appreciate that very much. But thank you for being here with us. The subject of today's video is Let's Talk Turkey. Now, that's not because Thanksgiving is a week from now. But it's because of some tectonic shifts that are occurring in Turkey in light of the Israel-Gaza war, some very significant changes there that are happening in light of Ezekiel 38 and the Gog Magog war. So I want to talk about Turkey and what's happening there and how that's significant in light of the Ezekiel 38 prophecy. Now, a couple of quick announcements and mention some questions that we're going to look at in a bit. But again, many of you know now that the book that Jimmy and I've written that was flagged for a couple of weeks and not allowed by Amazon to be on their platform is out now. So we're very excited about this. It's What's Next? Israel-Gaza War, connecting today's headlines to tomorrow's prophetic events. It talks about kind of the genesis or the source of this conflict from the past, what's happening there now. It's very up to date. And then we take a view and a look at where this is all headed, especially in light of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which is what we're going to talk about here today. So you can get this on Amazon. On Amazon, I think it's $9.99. It's not an expensive book. And so I'd encourage you to get one, but I'm sure a lot of people are interested in this topic, want to know more about it. So get several copies if you can and distribute them to friends and family members, maybe people who don't know the Lord and wonder what's happening in the world, and they're filled with fear. And knowing that God has a plan and a program and that He's sovereign over these events can give people great assurance and comfort in these times. Here in a little bit, we'll go to our subscriber-only section and answer a question. One of them is, how can Satan be allowed into God's presence? And if he's going to be kicked out of heaven in Revelation 12 at the middle of the tribulation period, will he accuse believers when we get to heaven if we're raptured there in the pre-trib rapture? Another question about Rosh Hashanah and the rapture, the timing of that. Another question about Matthew 24, verse 7, and earthquakes in the world. It says, do you think that the earthquakes mentioned are the final sign that we need to see before the rapture? And then a final question about the Gog Magog war and the armies that are being supernaturally wiped out with an earthquake. And are the 144,000 remnant the only part of Israel that survive? And will Jerusalem survive? So a lot of really good questions on a variety of topics that we'll look at here in a bit when we get to our subscriber-only section. But again, the topic of today's video is about Turkey. Now, I've mentioned this in several previous videos. I don't want to repeat things too often, but I know that new people here come on board, and all of us kind of need a refresher sometimes about these things. But in Ezekiel 38, there's going to be an invasion of Israel in the end times. It's one of the great end time wars. It's Ezekiel 38-39 war, called the War of Gog and Magog. Ezekiel 38 and 39 comes right after Ezekiel 37, which pictures the regathering of the Jewish people to their land in the end times that we are seeing right now before our eyes. It started in 1948 and it continues, and we're seeing literally the fulfillment of that prophecy. But in Ezekiel 38, 1-6, there's 10 proper names there. The leader of this invasion is Gog, and there's 9 other places mentioned there that are geographical locations, ancient geographical places. And the modern counterparts to those, when we look at these places, are Russia and Iran and Turkey and Sudan and Libya. But 4 of the nations that are mentioned there, Meshech, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah, are all in modern-day Turkey. So 4 of the 9 geographical places mentioned there are in the modern-day nation of Turkey. And so Turkey's a key player in this end-time invasion of Israel. Now, Turkey's always kind of been the outlier in this prophecy because, as you may know, Turkey's actually a member of NATO. They've tried to become a member of the European Union, but they're a member of NATO. And so they've kind of been a little bit more allied with these Western nations, although they've also kept their ties with these Islamic nations and Russia as well. So they've kind of been a nation in between. Well, what happened on October 7th when Hamas came into Israel and committed these just horrific atrocities? There's all kinds of repercussions from that are taking place that are really reverberating across the Middle East and across the world. And one of the dramatic repercussions from this is that Turkey is now taking a totally pro-Palestinian posture and totally against Israel. It's been a very, very dramatic shift that's taken place. One article I read this week, the title says this: Gaza war pushes tumultuous Israel-Turkey ties into the deep freezer. So Turkey has gone all in against Israel and in favor of Hamas and the Palestinians. Israel has recalled its diplomats from Turkey, and Turkey has recalled its diplomats from Israel. And it says in this article that ties between Israel and Turkey have literally reached a breaking point. That's how serious it is. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Turkey celebrated the 100th anniversary of their republic. Now, obviously, Turkey's existed as a nation for a long time, but the modern nation of Turkey was founded in 1923 by a man named Ataturk. And on October 28th, on October 29th, they had a huge celebration there for the 100th anniversary of their republic, founded in 1923. Well, it was completely overshadowed, though, by all kinds of protests in favor of Palestine. There's only two flags allowed at this 100th anniversary celebration. One was the Turkish flag, and the other was the Palestinian flag. They're the only two flags that were allowed there. Recep Erdogan, who's the president of Turkey, at this 100th anniversary, he fails to in any way condemn the massacre that took place of the Jewish people. He never even really mentions it. He calls what Israel is doing against Hamas and the Palestinians genocide. He calls Israel war criminals. He calls Israel occupiers. He says that Hamas is not a terrorist organization. He calls them freedom fighters. He says they're a national liberation movement. He said just this last week that Netanyahu is no longer someone we can talk to. We erased him and threw him away. And he said Netanyahu will pay for Gaza. The Turkish parliament this last week banned Coke products and Nestle products from the restaurants in government offices in their parliament because of their alleged support for Israel. So they're saying any company that supports Israel in any way is going to be dumped by them. Now, I don't know why they picked Coke and Nestle to start with, but those are the two that they opened with. Another article that's fascinating is it says Israel's Gaza war opens room for Turkey-Iran rapprochement. So Turkey is pulling away dramatically. Their relationship with Israel's in the deep freezer. They're pulling away from Israel, but at the same time, they're drawing near to Iran, one of the other nations mentioned in Ezekiel 38. And here's what the article says. Turkey's efforts on a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages held by Hamas are continuing, though so far without results. Its Gaza diplomacy has, however, invigorated Ankara, that's the capital of Turkey, Ankara's ties with Iran. President Recep Erdogan has pleased Tehran, that's the capital of Iran, by refusing to label Hamas a terrorist organization and instead calling it a Mujahideen liberation group. He intends to play a leading role at Sunday's summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation together with his Iranian counterpart, Ebrahim Raisi. Raisi is the president of Iran. They've both been at this Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and their ties are deepening with one another. And again, that's exactly what we should expect as the Gog Magog war gets closer. Another article in Reuters says Turkey calls for international conference to reach a permanent peace in the Middle East. That's kind of it reminds you of what the Antichrist is going to do in the end times when he comes. He's going to bring peace to Israel. So he's calling for this international conference. He addressed the joint Islamic Arab Summit in Saudi Arabia, where leaders gathered Israel to end the hostilities in Gaza. But one other thing here, we just see what we see Turkey doing, pulling away from Israel. We see them moving towards Iran and Russia. But at the same time, we also see them having a real rupture in their ties with Europe. Another article title says this: Turkey's Gaza fury deepens split with the EU. This is testing Turkey's ties to the European Union. Again, we read Ezekiel 38. We always see Turkey there. They're part of NATO. They've got these ties to the West, but yet we know in the end they're going to be allied with Iran and with Russia. And so we're beginning, I think, here with this monumental event, this Israel-Gaza war, to see the fractures taking place where Turkey now is moving in the direction that we would expect them to be moving. So Turkey has to break its ties with Europe at some point and fully align with Russia and with Iran, according to Ezekiel 38. And what we see happening now, I think, is a preview of that. As these nations are lining up exactly as we should expect if the end is drawing near. So what we see happening is just all over the world, all kinds of repercussions happening from this Israel-Gaza war. All the anti-Semitism we see in the world being poured out against Israel. We see alignments of nations forming. One of the key places that we need to keep our eyes on is Turkey. They're a key player in all of this, and Turkey's going to end up going with the East. They're going to go to Iran, and everything's going to be in place for the Gog Magog invasion to take place. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. If you're a subscriber, we'll go in just a moment into the subscriber-only section and answer those questions that I referred to earlier. If you're not a subscriber, encourage you to do that. Go to endtimes.com. You can sign up there for just $7 a month and be part of a community where we study prophecy together, answer these questions, fellowship together, and look for the Lord's coming together and encourage one another. So we encourage you to do that. And we'll go now into the question and answer time.